Okay, this was an awesome lucid dream that I had. It was part virtual reality. This is what I mean by like lucid dreams. They're like really, really, really long, and the atmosphere can feel kind of dreamy like, as opposed to like complete virtual reality. And also, they feel like you're in a different, dimension or reality or whatever. But normally, my lucid dreams, they seem like they last for hours and hours and hours and hours, as opposed to like just bam when they give me like a out of body experience or virtual reality experience. Those are different. Those don't last quite as long as these lucid dreams. And of course, it was also an out-of-body experience. It's only rare that I have the really bad dreams where they're so artificial that like you don't even like all you see is a bunch of like images, basically, and it doesn't even feel like you're in the dream. You know what I'm saying? It's rare that I have those sucky ones, but all of my dreams are pretty much out-of-body experiences. So anyway. So it started off, and I think I was asking, I was just, I was sort of asking them just like randomly or whatever. Like one time when I was on the couch, I was like, will you take me, I was just naming off all these cities, like Overland Park and blah, 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 blah. But I can't remember how many days before this experience I said that. They've taken me to Kansas City before. Kansas City, and then over in Kansas, because I used to live there. They put me in Kansas City, Missouri before, and then they stuck me over in Roland Park, Kansas, that area before. Well, this time they took me to Overland Park, Kansas. Roland Park, Kansas is a few miles down the road, but yeah, so this time they took me to Overland Park, Kansas, and in the experience, like I say, it felt like I totally was in a different dimension. It didn't necessarily feel like Overland Park, Kansas, even though I knew it was, because they already programmed that for me. They already told me that that's where I was at. But this experience, the whole atmosphere, it just felt like I was in a different reality, a different dimension. And over this Overland Park, oh my God, it was just like huge. I mean, like, did I say 10 times bigger? I think I meant to say 100 times bigger. Like, I mean, this this whole city was like freaking huge, like 100 times bigger than the normal Overland Park city that I know of, or that I know and lived in. And so basically, okay, hold on. Okay, so like, basically, it was like 95% concrete. Because it was nothing but like freeways, just freeways everywhere. And concrete. But there were like outer sidewalks or whatever, outside of the streets, the actual overpasses and stuff where you could get on and be safe from all the cars and stuff. They didn't present me with, looking at a bunch of cars that whizzed by. It was like all these freeways were like, it's almost like they were closed or something, because there wasn't any cars or anything going on them or driving on them. And so basically I was standing there, and I already knew I was in Overland Park, Kansas. And I went there to meet up with this ex-person that I know. And there was one point of the experience where I was standing there, and I was thinking these thoughts. Of course, the aliens do this a lot. Like, I'm supposed to meet up with somebody, and we're supposed to have fun, we're supposed to do this, and then they never make me meet up with the person. They do that a lot. I don't know why they do that. And they're just being like teasers or something. Okay, so, yeah, so there's one part I was standing there and I started thinking these thoughts, and they were kind of like sexual thoughts about this person, because I used to like know her and everything, over 20 years ago or whatever. And I was just thinking like, you know, like how could she be that way and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so it's like I was going to Overland Park to meet up with this ex-girlfriend, but the thing is, she never even lived in Overland Park. You know, she always lived here. But of course, I never did meet up with her, and the alien never did present her to me. Now, actually, several months ago, there was an experience where she was in the scene. That was about a year ago or whatever. But anyway, in this experience, they never did present her with me, or to me or whatever. So anyway, basically, I mean, okay, in this experience, a lot of my lucid dreams, it's really weird. They'll start off where it's daytime, and then it'll end where it's like nighttime. Like it turns from daytime to nighttime in the whole experience. That happens a lot in these long, drawn-out lucid dreams. And, okay, so basically, basically, I drove there, except the alien didn't present me with driving and all that. So I drove to Overland Park, except that wasn't part of the experience. It was just, you know, like I say, this experience was more, you know, they created it more artificial-like, so they can just give you all these, you know, details of the experience, even though they're not showing you, they're not making you get into your car and drive and blah, 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 blah. So basically, I drove to Overland Park. And, so like I say, I was standing there, and I mean, it was just nothing but, I mean, highways, freeways, concrete, parking garages, which are concrete, and when I'd be looking out at the, you know, at a far off distance was all the big buildings and stuff, but it was just massive. I mean, massive big buildings, just massive, 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 like I say, but they were like far off at a distance, so it was like I was in the middle of all these freeways in the middle of the city, so to speak, and all surrounding the freeways and stuff were all the big buildings, but it was just massive. Like the city was, I would say it was definitely more than 10 times, I would say 100 times bigger than the normal city. And, so anyway, so I'm just like walking along, and, you know, after I look at all the big cities and stuff, and like I say, these lucid dreams, sometimes they're hard, to explain from beginning to end, because, you know, they can be kind of, I don't know, it's like sometimes I don't have a problem though, but they're so long and stuff, so then after you wake up, you can't, you know, logically remember totally everything in chronological order from beginning to end. And so, like, but I remember everything, but it's probably not going to be in chronological order. But anyway, so that was a part of the experience where I had these, like, sexual thoughts about this person. And, you know, what she's done in her lifetime and stuff. Okay, so anyway, so after I started walking along the concrete and everything, I come up to a checkpoint. And which is kind of funny because I had just been watching like Border Patrol, and you know how they have all those checkpoints and stuff on those shows on Netflix and stuff, so that's why the aliens stuck that in here. So I was walking through a checkpoint, and it was like I was walking under like a parking garage. Of course, it was all concrete. And so I had some bags on me, and there was like 2 or 3 other men in front of me, and then there was like the guy checking everybody's bags and stuff. And so I gave him my bag and everything, and I kept fumbling around like, where's my shoes? Where's my shoes? Like, I had forgot to bring my shoes. So I looked down, and because I was going to put my shoes on, and so apparently, you know, I was barefoot. I mean, I had socks on, but I was barefoot, basically, when they, you know, plopped me down into this scenario in the middle of the freeways and highways and concrete and stuff. And so basically, when I got to the checkpoint, I was like, I was looking through my bag looking for my shoes, and I looked down at my feet, and all I had was socks on. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to walk forever and ever all around this city and freeways and shit, like, barefoot with my socks on. And so anyway, so yeah, so like I never did find my shoes. I didn't bring my shoes. I forgot them. And sometimes, the aliens put that in there because I do, which I shouldn't be because I have really sensitive feet. I go outside sometimes and I walk around on the grass, with just my socks on, which I shouldn't be doing that because I got bone problems in my feet and stuff because I've injured them before. But, yeah, so anyway, so I had to walk, like, throughout this whole damn experience, barefoot, basically, but I had socks on because I forgot my shoes, to bring my shoes or whatever. So basically, after I walked past the checkpoint, I saw this big, huge ice skating rink. I don't know why they threw that in there unless they just throw all these random bits and pieces sometimes of your brain, and sometimes it doesn't make sense at all. And I was walking, after I walked through the checkpoint, I saw, it was almost like it was under another parking garage, except it wasn't a parking garage. The whole surface was a melting ice skating rink. And I started walking on it, and I was just like, wow, my feet are going to get cold. And I knew why it was, melting. It was melting because somebody had told me that if there's not a hockey game going on or whatever, then they don't care to like freeze it all back up again and stuff. But yeah, and so I got this picture from the internet, a melting ice skating rink. And, but yeah, I did, not too long ago, I did watch that one movie, and I guess that's why the aliens put that in there, because it was like an ice skating rink, outside on a lake or whatever. And I guess they just threw that in there. The bad son or whatever. So yeah, it's just funny, some of these experiences, but sometimes they do all make sense, and sometimes they don't. But anyway, sometimes they just throw all these random bits and pieces of your brain, and they just throw it all in one lucid dream. And, okay, so after the ice skating rink, after I started walking along the ice skating rink, okay, let me see here. Okay, so I was walking along the ice skating rink. After that, the next thing I know, I'm like back, standing on the concrete in the middle of the freeway, but no cars are coming by. And at this particular time, it turned dark. It was dark time. And my sister, I turned around and my sister was standing there in the middle of the freeway where I was standing. And I was just kind of like, why are you here? Because she lives in my town, 3 hours away. And I'm thinking, why the heck is she here? And she was like being all on the down low and stuff. She was like, trying to secretly go there because she was trying to cheat on somebody or whatever. And so I didn't have much interaction with her. Like, that was it. I somehow knew all of that. I was just like, why are you here? And she's like, well, why are you here? And I can't remember if I told her why I was there or not, but I knew that she wasn't supposed to be there. And so she turned around and walked off, and that's the only interaction I had with my sister. But she wasn't supposed to be there. She was like being all secret and going there to go off and meet with another boyfriend or something. I somehow knew that. And so anyway, after that, it was still dark time. It turned dark time by that point. And after that, I started walking along, and I look over, I don't know which direction I was standing, but I looked at the far off distance, and there was a big lake, and then to the right was like a half-mile long stretch of a fair, and it was all like beautiful and colorful with lights and everything. And I started looking down at all the little booths and stuff, and so I saw like a lot of like food booths, but the first booth that I saw was like where you play the games, but it was all horizontal. this fair was just one big long strip. I mean, that was like a half-mile long. And like I say, it was right there on this strip. There was a lake right there. And so I don't know why they put the fair in there, but that was kind of cool. And it was like very beautiful and colorful and everything. Okay, so another part after this, what happened was I saw a couple other people like walking around, and there was an ogre that came into the scene. And they put an ogre in there because I'm watching this show and it had an ogre in it. This ogre came into the scene, but he looked more human than, like, he was bald. He looked more human than, like, an ogre. But, and it's like, intermittently, he would go crazy and start shooting at everybody. Just, like, intermittently, like, and I knew that. And, somehow, you know, I saw him starting to shoot and everything, so I kind of started running. But anyway, for whatever reason, I knew that he wasn't really there to injure me. But I knew that he somehow, you know, people were saying, well, he doesn't get mean all the time. It's just kind of intermittently type of thing. And so more about that later. But anyway, so this other part of the scene, like I say, I was standing there in the concrete and looking at all the freeways, and I was the freeway started to rotate. The freeway started to like move, like over to my left. It was moving. And so I like laid down with my stomach flat, you know, face down on the concrete with my hands spread out. I started laying down because I thought I was going to like fall off. It's like it was, the freeway was disconnecting from the sidewalk area, or what do you call that? I forgot what you call it. The sidewalk area of the freeway. It was like disconnecting, and it was starting to rotate like this way, like that way. And so that's why I was trying to hold on. And so I laid down, and it kind of was coming up at an angle. It was coming up at an angle, and that's why I laid down so I could cling down so I wouldn't like fall off the freeway or whatever. So then I jumped back over on the sidewalk. That part wasn't moving. Because I was trying to, like, you know, I was like, shit, man. I didn't want to be, like, you know, I didn't know what it was going to be doing, you know, because it was moving like that. So I wanted to be more on stationary part of the concrete or whatever. So I jumped over on the sidewalk area. Okay, so that was one cool part. Okay, so then, like I said, there was a couple other people walking around with me all of a sudden. And I can't remember who they were or whatever, but one or two of them seemed kind of familiar to me. And then, like I say, the ogre started shooting at people. So I started like running off over to my right, and I started running down the steps. And of course, the steps were concrete to get away from him. I started running down the steps to get away from the ogre. And because he would just like, you know, intermittently like go crazy and start shooting a gun at everybody. Okay, so that was one part where I hurried up and started running over to my right and running down the stairs, which were concrete. And like I say, this whole experience, it was just funny because, I mean, it was amazing what they present you with and everything. I mean, totally cool, totally out of this world. Virtual reality, except this was more like a lucid dream. And like I said, they felt like you're totally in a different dimension. Even though I knew it was Overland Park, it didn't necessarily feel like the Overland Park that I know, because this wasn't like a total virtual reality experience. This was like lucid dream. And like I say, a lot of my lucid dreams, they totally feel like I'm in another dimension or reality. And like I say, it started off daytime, and then it ended up being nighttime. Okay, so the last part, and like I say, this experience, it seemed like it lasted for hours and hours. I mean, it seemed like at least, you know, 7-8 hours, where I was walking around, looking at the city, looking at all this, you know, the city out at the distance, which was freaking huge. And I was encased with all these damn freeways and concrete and parking garages, and it was like freaking all concrete. And And I know the aliens picked that from my brain because I've had thoughts like that before about Dallas. You know, like I bring up, you know, Dallas whenever they had that snowstorm or whatever, and people were like stuck on all these freeways in Dallas. So they picked that from my brain. And okay, so anyway, the last part, and I probably am forgetting a few little things, but anyway, so the last part of the experience, it was dark time, and you know, I started going off to the right. Yeah, actually, I don't know where I was at, but I was walking along, and it seemed like I was walking, I don't know what you call it, but I was away from the freeways at that point. I don't know what you call it, but it's like, oh, it's like I was just like more into the city at that point, but the big buildings were still off at a distance, but at least I was away from the freeways and all that. So I was walking along, and it seemed like there were some buildings, but it didn't seem like gift shops or anything like that. It almost seemed like just like an industrial place. The small area where I was walking off. And so this was the very end of the experience when I started walking off in that area off of all the concrete and freeways and parking garages and crap. Over to my left, I saw a clown way up at the distance. Oh, and by the way, when I stepped on the melting ice skating rink, I could feel the water and everything. I could feel the coldness, and I could feel the water. So that part was like virtual reality, and the other part was when I was moving around and shit on the freeway, because it was disconnecting from the outer edge. That part was virtual reality as well. But so like I say, the last part I was walking along, and like I said, it just seemed like some small little like body shops or something. Not body shops, I mean auto body shops, I mean. Off to the left and off to the right, and it was dark time, and I was walking along, and I believe that was after I started running down the stairs, getting away from the ogre. I looked over to my left, and there was a clown that was presented to me. But this clown was not a human clown. This clown was way off at a distance. So it was massively huge because I was still able to see it even though it was way off at a distance. So this clown, it seemed like it was, you know, since it was way off at a distance, it was probably, you know, 50 feet tall or whatever. But it seemed more like it was some kind of, like when you buy those rubber, or those blow-up things for Christmas, those blow-up snowmen, and blow-up dragons or whatever for Christmas or Halloween or whatever, those big old blow-up things. It seemed like something like that. It wasn't a human clown. It was like this big blow-up doll type of thing. And like I say, I mean, it was totally a clown. And it was off at a distance, but I still saw it clearly. So like I say, it was like presented to me, it was really big apparently, because I still saw it clearly even though it was off at a distance. So it must have been like a 50-foot tall, you know, clown, blow-up clown or whatever. Okay, and that was the last part of the experience. Oh, and by the way, I did watch the movie The Clown on Netflix. I did watch that a few months ago. So the aliens, they just like pick all these random things from your brain and throw it in a lucid dream, but it was amazing. I mean, it was awesome. It was amazing. You know, I wouldn't be like talking about it if it wasn't like so fun in virtual reality, so to speak. But I'm sure there's some small parts that I'm forgetting, but yeah, so that was my experience to Overland Park, Kansas. But like I say, this freaking city was 100 times bigger. I mean, it was massive. And like I say, the clown was not a human clown. It was just like this big blow-up clown doll thing. But the fair was totally on the other side of the freeway. You know what I'm saying? This clown was presented to me on the other side of all those parking garages and freeways and shit. But anyway, that's a picture of the freeway. That's a picture of my sister. Well, not really, but that's a picture of the clown. That's the ogre. That's the fair and the checkpoint. And that's me without socks. And that's the skating rink. And like I say, I could feel the coldness. I could feel the water on my feet. And That's the reptilian that gave me the experience. Well, of course, normally it's the flat-faced beings that give me these kind of experiences. And the gun, as far as I remember, the gun wasn't like that. It was more of a handgun. It wasn't quite that big that he was shooting at people. But the ogre, like I say, was more human-looking. He was kind of tall, with bald hair. But like I say, he was more human-looking than like an ogre. But in the experience, they still already programmed me to know that it was an ogre. If I forget anything significant, which I'll put that in the comments, but I know I'm not forgetting anything like significant. I mean, maybe a few details, you know, but not significant details. But anyway, that's my experience to Overland Park, Kansas. It was an out-of-body experience, but it was 80% lucid dream, well, virtual reality lucid dream, and 20%, no, not 20%, 10% virtual reality. But like I say, this wasn't like what some of the aliens give me, you know, virtual reality. After they give me an out-of-body experience, and then they plop me down. Those are different. Those feel no different than regular walking around in 3D. But these lucid dreams feel like you're in a freaking different reality, different dimension. Thanks for listening.